Become very clear that nations all over the world fake space and it's nothing but a money-making operation. Here you can see a 2014 budget. Last year, NASA took in $18.4 billion. Now, let's take a look at how NASA utilizes zero-G planes, green screens, and blue screens, along with CGI computer processing for footage to fake astronauts up in space, especially on the ISS. Now, getting before it's George Bush Sr., who was once quoted, "American people knew what we've done, they'd lynch us out in the streets." Of course, he was referring to pedophilia and child sacrifice, not the fact that Tim Peake, his supposed astronaut, is in the background appearing in front of a blue screen with the outline of the ISS background. Notice the lines on the pants, whether on top, whether formed under, or how the pants are always yanked up by the harness. Plus, we'll examine the wires on the harnesses. They're constantly getting their legs and arms caught on these wires.
To do up there, but I guess you one last question. What's there else to do up there?
You look like you're in a studio, maybe in Omaha, Nebraska or something. The shot is so clear. Is this a hoax? Are you really in space still?
See the hair?
I don't know. We're going to have to do something for you.
Yeah.
I
want to do it. I know.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Watch this.
Okay, let's check out another one.
Like you're in a studio, maybe in
Okay,
Omaha,
now,
Nebraska
let's look
or
at this
something.
again.
The shot is
The
so
woman on
clear.
the top
Is this a
right,
hoax?
her
Are you
hair
really in
clearly
space
doesn't
still?
look real. The man on the top
I don't
left,
know. We're
we
going to have
see
to do
him
something for you.
sliding and grabbing wires along to help the man on the bottom left. I mean, it's just a
Oh, yeah,
ridiculous
I can do
scene.
that. Watch this.
Like Randy's doing right now, it looks like for him, that he's standing up. So there's really no sense of direction other than maybe the writing on the walls and the lights that we have. Really neat when you're working, you can get in all different kinds of spots and it all seems to work fine. So it's a great place to live. Really neat when you're working, you can get in all different kinds of spots and it all seems to work fine. So it's a
This guy on the right is going to get his left leg and his right arm both hung up on a wire here. And this is going to be followed by another clip of virtually the same thing occurring.
I'll float, Mark is floating, and so it really takes a lot of effort to learn how to control that. When I set things down on the ground, you can let it go.
Stay tuned, this is ECACR, that concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you. PBS News, Jason.
screen directions
Yes.
flopped, right?
Sometimes
Yes, yeah.
the men aren't
On
even
wires,
in
but
the
it's all
same
upside
studio,
down,
but
and
at separate locations.
then the camera does a sort of rotational move that makes everything else look. It's sort of, we found like the, you know, even little tricks like flopping images or things like that, or putting a camera upside down or things like that could do a ton, because
really help sell it.
Because the intent actually is to sort of confuse the viewer enough in terms of directionality, because that's sort of what space does.
Let's listen to some others' takes on what's going on in the ISS.
Is this really the ISS going on? These are scenes from the movie called Life. It's about the ISS, and you can see how they're floating around with harnesses. I think this is how they're doing it. This lady's hair is just stiff as a board, standing straight up, and that's her proof that they're on the ISS. This lady's hair is bouncing right back in place as she bends down. I've reversed it back and forth so you can see how she moves her head forward, and instead of her hair freely flowing forward, bounces back in place. Same with this Medusa chick here. She's definitely in a 0G plane because she's floating around, but her hair is hairsprayed stiff. Now, if you were just going to keep your hair out of your way, I would pull it back in a ponytail, but she's got it stiff. Now, this is what your hair would do in 0G. Freely move, not stiff as a board like we see on the right here. This is hairspray. This looks exactly like what we see on the ISS. Now, sometimes we do see hair moving freely on the ISS when it's an edited shot, you know, just little clips. But if there's any long periods of shots or live, they definitely do the hairspray, so you can't tell when the plane levels out. But look at this hair freely flowing on the ISS. So both of these are from the ISS, but their hair is doing completely different things. So you come up with your own conclusion here. But this is how I expect people to fly around on the ISS, just corkscrewing and going all crazy, but they always just do this backflip or this front flip, this stiff flip.
Lives we spend looking at the horizon and it's flat. I mean, it's flat. That's all. That's what the horizon's supposed to look like. And you get up here to orbit, all of a sudden the Earth is curved.
You may expect everything up here in microgravity to float, because most everything does float. However, sometimes something a little different happens. Sometimes you just might find a little pocket of gravity.
No.
So I love it when I get questions like this, because I want everybody, certainly here at the Smithsonian today, all the future engineers and everywhere, to understand why the science on the space station helps us out here on Earth. Helps us out here on Earth.
Believe it or not, they process 1/3 of the federal government payroll. And that's over $200 billion every 2 weeks that runs through this particular facility. We also have Big Easy Productions, and they do movies that I can't talk about right now, but they also do movie productions here as well. So, and they do movies that I can't talk about right now, but they also do movie productions here as well. So there's a lot of great things that come out of Nishu that you wouldn't realize. And that allows us to kind of offset some of our costs back to the work we do from a NASA perspective. And that's key when you start talking about the taxpayer dollars under one roof line. That's like 31 football fields that can fit in this particular building.
31 football fields
31 under one roof. So we have a lot of football going on here. So our job is to build rockets. You can't get to Mars without going through New Orleans. see by the clear span, the high eve, the insulation properties, the HVAC properties, power. It's just meant for this exact purpose.
How about size? How does it compare size-wise?
Stage 2 is 13,000 square feet, which is comparable to many. And this stage is 31,000 square feet, which is the
NASA's mission to go back to the moon, then Mars, and beyond flies through New Orleans.
So exciting. Today, the space agency's top officer made his first official visit to the Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans East. That's where workers are building the next generation of manned spaceflight. Paul Murphy was on the tour and joins us with details. Get your imagination going, Paul. Get your imagination going, Paul. Get your imagination going, Paul.
Oh, it does, Karen and Natalie. Rocket factory.
So it doesn't get any better than that, unless you got a seat in the spaceship.
Well, that'd be nice having a seat on that space shot.
You often say, the path to the moon and Mars goes through New Orleans, and it really does. I mean, this facility, as you look around the pictures on the wall, this facility, as you look around the pictures on the wall, has a tremendous history.
I mean, the visual effects budgets for movies have gone from a few million to tens of millions. So, we have rocket scientists and all that kind of stuff working on movies. So, we have rocket scientists and all that kind of stuff working on movies. So,
but it also speaks to a sense of history, a sense of purpose, and a sense of origin, a sense of story. And that's what you folks are all about, is this sense of story. And this forging the future, this link between science and science fiction, is for us a fascinating one. It's why a lot of us got into this.
You may expect everything up here in microgravity to float, because most everything does float. However, sometimes something a little different happens. Sometimes you just might find a little pocket of gravity.
That's the sponsors again. Data shows millennials don't like the color. And we need a hashtag.
gather some data, and then they send that back to Earth. You want to put that information in context for people to see and understand. Let's say I want to do an animation of a lander that's on Mars. Basically, you model the spacecraft in 3D, so you have to pick parts of it, like the legs or the
ISS footage. I did a test. Now, I had no idea what the result was going to be, but it turned out that it did indeed look like NASA was faking their ISS footage. As you can see here, the people in the foreground should have a nice consistent fade out to the background, but you see around the shirts, the blue shirts, the edges aren't properly defined as they should be, and that's because they're filming in front of a blue screen, which is pretty fucking stupid, filming a blue shirt in front of a blue screen.
The effort to feed astronauts in space is underway here on the ground too, with their spatulas at the ready.
And I looked up at the night sky, and what persists to this day, and what is an embarrassingly urban thought. I look up at the night sky from the finest mountaintops in the world, and I look up and I say, it reminds me of the Hayden Planetarium. I don't know, it's embarrassing. See, I beg for...
And it's these instruments that will give us the juicy details about the early days of the universe, as well as see things sharper than any telescope has before.
If you were a bumblebee, I would bring out at the distance of the moon, we would be able to see you. If you were a bumblebee, I would bring out at the distance of the moon, we would be able to see you, both by your reflected sunlight and by the thermal irradiation, the heat that you emit.
Oh yeah, I'm still in awe. Watch the trajectory of the space shuttle. It doesn't go straight up. It always goes in a curve and out to sea. The point is that they actually go horizontal. The space shuttle goes horizontal. It never goes any further up. It goes horizontal, very, very low down in the atmosphere, because it drops its external tank while it's still in the atmosphere. So, you know, it's still in the atmosphere while it's horizontal, so it never gets any higher. And it goes out of sight, not because it goes too high, because it goes too far downrange. And it seems that nobody's ever on the space shuttle. And the proof of that is the Challenger disaster. In, I believe it's 1986, the Challenger exploded just after takeoff and killed 7 astronauts. But it turns out that 6 of the astronauts are still alive, and most of them are using their original names. And you can find pictures of them. They're using the same names, and they're doing ordinary jobs now.
Now, one thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go.
This is for the skeptics. Actual proof that they use
wires. You look like you're in a
Check
studio,
this out.
maybe in Omaha, Nebraska or something. The shot is so clear. Is this a hoax? Are you really in space still?
Yeah, because the air proves that you're in space.
I don't know, we're going to have to
check
do
this.
something for
Check
you.
the man with a stripy top. Look, he grabs the wire above him. Now check the man on the right. With his right arm, he grabs the wire. Do you see it? Now check in slow motion. The man on the right, look at his right arm, he's grabbing him to stabilise him. Then look at the man behind him with the stripy top on. Now he's looking up and he's grabbing the wire, look. He's looking for the wire to grab it, yeah? Check that out, he's grabbing the wire there, look. Look, he's looking up. Because he sees the wire moving about and he's grabbing it to stabilise it. Look. Now check the man on the right. With the USMC t-shirt. Check his arm. Watch this. Check his arm. Look, his arm goes to grab him, look. But he doesn't grab him, he grabs the wire. Look, there's nothing there. But he's grabbing something and it's tugging his trousers up. And then check him on the left. He looks down to see. Look, he's checking it out himself. Yeah? You wanted proof, you've just got proof there. If you don't accept this, then you are just absolutely brainwashed. This is absolute proof that they are using wires on the space station, or the fake space station. You've just been busted, guys. Busted wide open. Your hoax has been exposed. You deceiving little snakes. Fuck you all, you satanic pricks.